The humidity of Wilshire Boulevard clung to the air, but the circle of men surrounding Naomi Williams was ice cold. "You should have stayed gone, Naomi Williams. The Kang family has a long memory." Naomi didn't flinch. She stood like a statue carved from obsidian, her knuckles white against her purse strap. She was one word away from a public execution of her dignity when a calm, youthful voice interrupted. "My father doesn't like crowds." The circle broke. Standing there was a boy, no older than 12, dressed in a school blazer that cost more than the men's suits combined. His eyes weren't a child's eyes, they were cold and calculating. "You're making a scene. And my father," the boy continued, nodding toward the idling black Maybach at the curb, "hates noise." The heavy rear door swung open. Young Sun stepped out, a silhouette of lethal elegance, the ink of a dragon's tail coiled up his throat, disappearing behind a jawline sharp enough to draw blood. "Gentlemen," Young Sun murmured. The word wasn't a greeting, it was a death sentence. The men scattered like roaches. Naomi stared at the boy, then the man. The boy looked back at her with an expression too knowing for his age. "I see you." Young Sun's eyes lingered a moment longer than necessary before he returned to his car to leave, but what he didn't know, what none of them were yet to realize, was that something had shifted already. Welcome to K-Stories by Emma. Before we continue, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any story. 2 hours later, Naomi stood in her downtown loft at 2 a.m., phone screen burning her retinas. Google alert: Kang Min-jae expands business empire to U.S. West Coast. Her fingers trembled. 3 years, 5,000 miles. She'd thought distance was armor. She was wrong. The article showed her ex-husband, Min-jae, at some tech conference, smiling that practiced smile she used to think was genuine before she knew better, before Seoul taught her that cruelty wore expensive cologne and spoke 3 languages. Her mind dragged her back, unwilling, unwanted. The charity gala, 2 years into their marriage. Madame Kang Sun-hwa at the podium, diamond necklace glittering like a noose. Some women mistake generosity for entitlement. Every head in that ballroom turned. Every eye found Naomi. Min-jae sat beside her, his hand limp in hers like a dead fish. He didn't defend her, didn't even squeeze her fingers. That's when she understood. She'd married a beautifully dressed coward. Naomi blinked. Present day. Her loft. The city lights blurred through floor-to-ceiling windows. She caught her reflection. Natural curls pulled into a tight bun, makeup barely there, beige blouse buttoned to her throat. 3 years of making herself invisible. 3 years of shrinking. The woman in the glass didn't look like her anymore. Her laptop pinged. Email notification, then another, then 3 more in rapid succession. She opened them with numb fingers. "Dear Miss Williams, we regret to inform you that we must postpone our consultation indefinitely due to unforeseen circumstances. Budget constraints. Going in a different direction. 4 clients. Gone, just like that. Naomi's cultural consulting business, the thing she'd built from nothing after the divorce, was bleeding out in real time. Someone was whispering poison into the right ears. Someone who knew exactly how to destroy her. Again. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the notification. Something slid under her door. Naomi crossed the room, heart hammering against her ribs. A business card lay on the hardwood. No logo, no name, just an address in Koreatown and 7 handwritten words. "The boy wants to know if you're okay." She picked it up, turned it over. Nothing else. The boy, sharp eyes, expensive blazer, that unnerving calm. And the man, Young Sun, tattoos and silence and danger wrapped in a $50,000 suit. Every rational cell in Naomi's body screamed, "Don't." But she was so tired, tired of running, tired of being alone with her fear, tired of making herself small in a world that kept trying to erase her anyway. She grabbed her keys. If she was going to disappear, she might as well know who was watching. The tea shop on 6th Street didn't look like much. Peeling paint, a faded sign in Hangul, the kind of place tourists walked past without noticing. Naomi almost turned back 3 times during the drive. But through the smudged window, she saw him. The boy sat in a corner booth, bent over a geometry textbook, pencil moving in precise strokes. He looked up like he'd felt her staring. No surprise on his face, just recognition. He waved her inside. Naomi's hand hesitated on the door handle. This was insane, following cryptic notes to meet a 12-year-old she didn't know, connected to a man whose name she didn't even have. She pushed the door open anyway. The bell chimed. The boy closed his textbook, gestured to the seat across from him like he was conducting a business meeting. G1, he said simply. No last name. You came. I shouldn't have. Naomi slid into the booth, purse clutched in her lap. But you did. G1 studied her with those unsettling eyes. You looked like my mom did. Before. The word hung there. Before. He didn't explain. Didn't need to. Naomi recognized the shape of loss. It carved itself into people, changed their faces. I'm sorry, she said quietly. G1 shrugged, too casual for the weight of what he wasn't saying. Then, without preamble, are those men going to hurt you? Naomi blinked. What? Yesterday, outside the restaurant. Are they going to hurt you? He asked it like he was asking about the weather, clinical, detached. I don't know. Are you alone? The question landed like a fist. Naomi's throat tightened. Yes. Do you have family? Not here. G1 nodded slowly, absorbing this. His fingers drummed the table. 1, 2, 3, stop. A nervous habit that didn't match the rest of his composure. Why are you asking me this? Naomi leaned forward. Why did you leave that card? Because you needed someone to ask, he said, like it was obvious. Most people who need help don't get asked. They just disappear. The words sent ice down her spine. Naomi swallowed hard. I used to be married to a powerful family. It ended badly, and sometimes, her voice cracked, sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. G1's expression didn't change. My father says the past is just people who haven't learned to let go yet. Your father sounds wise. He's complicated. The door chimed again. Naomi didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The air pressure changed. The temperature dropped. Young Sun filled the doorway, then the room, his presence swallowing the small space. Those dark eyes found his son first, then Naomi. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe. Concern. G1, his voice was quiet, controlled. I told you not to bother her. I'm not bothering her. We're talking. Young Sun's jaw tightened, but he slid into the booth beside his son anyway, close enough that Naomi caught his scent, expensive cologne layered over something sharper, gunpowder maybe, or danger. He ordered tea in Korean, didn't touch it when it arrived. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable exactly, just loaded. G1 broke it. Do you know what my father does? Young Sun's hand stilled on the table. G1. Shh, it's okay, Naomi met Young Sun's eyes directly. I can guess. Can you? It wasn't a question. Naomi held his gaze. And I'm guessing you already know what my ex-husband's family does. Something shifted in Young Sun's expression. Recognition, maybe respect. We're not so different then, he said softly. No, Naomi agreed. I guess we're not. G1 looks between them, satisfied, like he'd just solved an equation. Naomi stood. This was too much, too fast. I should go. Young Sun reached into his jacket. Naomi tensed, instinct, but he only pulled out a phone, basic, untraceable. He set it on the table between them. If they come again, he said, voice flat, emotionless, you call, not the police, me. His tattooed hand stayed on the table, dragon scales coiled around his knuckles. Naomi picked up the phone. It felt heavier than it should. Why are you helping me? Young Sun's eyes darkened. Because my son asked me to. It wasn't the whole truth. They both knew it. Naomi slipped the phone into her purse and walked out without looking back, but she felt his eyes on her the entire way to her car. Naomi didn't sleep that night. She lay in her loft, staring at the ceiling, the burner phone on her nightstand casting a faint glow across the darkness. Every time she closed her eyes, Soul came back. Not the postcard version, the real one. The one that taught her what it meant to be erased while still breathing. 4 years ago, New York, the International Business Summit at the Waldorf Astoria. She'd been there representing a tech startup's diversity initiative. He'd been there representing old money and new ambitions. Kang Min-jae moved through that ballroom like he owned the oxygen. Oxford-educated smile, custom Tom Ford suit, speaking Mandarin to investors and French to the waitstaff. He noticed her during the keynote, found her afterward. "You're the only person in this room not pretending to care," he'd said, handing her champagne she didn't ask for. "Maybe I'm just better at pretending." He'd laughed, a real laugh. I doubt that very much. 3 months of transatlantic calls, poetry texted at 3 a.m., promises wrapped in 4 languages. "You'll never be invisible with me," he'd whispered the night he proposed beneath the Brooklyn Bridge. She believed him. The wedding was a spectacle, Seoul's elite crammed into the Sheila Hotel ballroom, crystal chandeliers, imported roses, a dress that cost more than Naomi's student loans. His mother, Madame Kang Sun-hwa, smiled for the cameras and didn't meet Naomi's eyes once. The nightmare started small. "Your hair is so wild," Sun-hwa remarked over breakfast the first week. "Have you considered something more refined?" "We're very progressive, of course," she told her friends at tea, Naomi sitting right there. "Min-jae's always been adventurous." Min-jae said nothing. His sister, Hae-won, was worse. No pretense of politeness. "Did my brother hire you for diversity points, or did you apply for the position?" Naomi waited for Min-jae to defend her. He squeezed her hand under the table, then let go. "They'll come around," he'd say later, alone in their bedroom. "Give them time." Time made it worse. Dinner parties where Sun-hwa discussed Naomi's hobby career like she was a child playing dress-up. Family photos where Naomi was cropped out before they hit social media. Business events where Hae-won introduced her as Min-jae's friend. And Min-jae? He held her hand during the humiliation, released it after. Every single time. The jade bracelet broke her. 14 months into the marriage, a Kang family heirloom, Qing dynasty, worth a fortune, spiritually priceless, it vanished from Sun-hwa's dressing room. The accusation came during dinner. No privacy, no mercy. "Naomi," Sun-hwa's voice cut through conversation like a blade. "Have you seen my jade bracelet, the one I showed you last week?" Every head turned. "No, It's missing from a locked cabinet only family has access to." Sun-hwa's smile was poison. How strange. The household staff stood frozen against the walls. Hae-won smirked into her wineglass. Min-jae cleared his throat. "Mother, I'm sure there's an explanation." "Of course there is." Sun-hwa's eyes never left Naomi. "I'd like security to search Naomi's belongings, just to clear things up." Naomi's fork clattered against her plate. "You think I stole from you?" "I think we should be thorough." She looked at Min-jae, begged him with her eyes to say something, do something, be the man he pretended to be in New York. He looked away. "It's probably just misplaced, but a search would clear the air." Something in Naomi died right there. They searched her things, found nothing. The bracelet never turned up. It didn't matter. The damage was permanent. She filed for divorce 3 weeks later. The Kangs dismantled her reputation with surgical precision, leaked stories to Korean media, gold digger, manipulator, foreigner who'd trapped their son. Min-jae gave interviews dripping with false regret about irreconcilable cultural differences and mutual respect. Mutual respect, while his lawyers buried her in paperwork, and his mother told journalists Naomi had anger issues. She left Seoul with a suitcase and her pride. That was all they let her keep. Naomi's laptop pinged, yanking her back to the present. 3:47 a.m., encrypted email, unknown sender. She opened it with shaking hands. A photograph loaded. The charity gala, that night, but zoomed in on the background, away from Sun-hwa's microphone assassination. Min-jae stood in a shadowed corner, leaning close to a man Naomi didn't recognize. Intense conversation. The stranger's face was half hidden, but his posture radiated authority. Below the image, one sentence. "He was already planning his American expansion when he married you. You were the passport." Naomi couldn't breathe. Her marriage? The poetry, the promises, the "you'll never be invisible with me"? It was all strategy. She wasn't his wife, she was infrastructure. She grabbed the burner phone, fingers numb, and typed, "I need to know who I'm really running from." The response came in seconds. "Come tomorrow. Bring everything you remember." The address led Naomi to downtown LA's industrial district, all concrete and steel, buildings that used to make things before tech startups bought them and painted the walls white. No signage, just a number stenciled beside a reinforced door. She pressed the buzzer. A camera above the frame swiveled toward her face. The lock clicked without a voice asking who she was. Inside, the warehouse had been gutted and rebuilt. Polished concrete floors, exposed ductwork painted matte black, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, the kind of minimalism that cost a fortune to look effortless. Unsettling in its silence. Young Sun stood in an office at the far end, backlit by morning sun. Ji-woon sat at a side desk, algebra textbook open, pencil moving in smooth strokes. He glanced up when Naomi entered, nodded once, went back to his equations. Like this was normal, like women didn't just show up at his father's fortress looking for answers about their destroyed lives. "Sit," Young Sun gestured to a chair across from his desk. Naomi sat. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling, so she folded them in her lap. Young Sun didn't do small talk. He spread photographs across the desk, surveillance shots, documents, newspaper clippings in Korean and English, a dossier, professional, thorough. "The Kang family," he said, voice flat. "They're not just billionaires playing with tech investments and real estate." He slid a document toward her, financial records, names she didn't recognize, numbers that didn't make sense. "They launder money for 3 syndicates in Seoul, Yakuza connections, triad pipelines, local organizations. Your ex-husband was sent to LA 6 months ago to establish new channels, legitimate businesses as fronts." Naomi stared at the papers, the words blurred. "And I was?" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Insurance." Young Sun's eyes didn't leave her face. An American-connected wife made him look clean, respectable, someone customs agents wouldn't look twice at. The room tilted. Naomi gripped the edge of the desk. Every memory reframed itself in brutal clarity. The business trips Min-jae took without her, Vegas, San Francisco, Atlanta, always Atlanta. The questions about her college roommate who worked at a bank, her cousin in the mayor's office. The way he'd encouraged her to attend networking events, collect business cards, make friends in all the right circles. Then he'd use those contacts without telling her. She was never his wife. She was his asset. "I'm going to be sick." "Breathe," Young Sun's voice cut through the spiral. "You're safe here." Ji-woon looked up from his homework. "That's not your fault." His voice, so certain, so steady, cut through Naomi's rising panic. She met the boy's eyes. He looked back without pity, just fact. "He used you," Ji-woon continued. "That says everything about him, nothing about you." Naomi's throat burned. She nodded because she didn't trust her voice. Young Sun continued, relentless. "Min-jae's LA operation is making enemies. He's reckless, loud, drawing attention to networks that survive by staying invisible." His jaw tightened. "He's going to start a war." "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Young Sun leaned forward. "If you're visible, you're a target. You know too much, even if you don't realize it. You're a loose end." Naomi's breath caught in her chest. "Why are you helping me?" Young Sun didn't answer, just held her gaze, expression unreadable. Ji-woon spoke instead. "Because it's the right thing." Young Sun's mouth twitched, almost a smile. He slid another photograph across the desk. Min-jae outside a restaurant in Little Tokyo, leaning against a black sedan. The man beside him was older, Japanese, expensive suit, eyes like a shark. "Tanaka Kenji runs a Yakuza-affiliated group out of Torrance. Your ex-husband is making alliances he shouldn't, crossing lines." He paused. "This was taken 6 days ago. After their meeting, Tanaka asked about you." Ice flooded Naomi's veins. What did he ask? If you were still in LA, if you were alone, if you knew anything. Naomi's personal phone buzzed in her purse, not the burner, her actual phone. She pulled it out with numb fingers. Unknown number, text message. "Naomi, we should talk. I'm in LA, I've missed you, MJ. Her blood turned to frost. Young Sun saw her face change. He took the phone from her shaking hand, read the message. Something dark and dangerous settled over his features. You don't respond, he said, voice low, controlled. And you don't go anywhere alone anymore. I can't just. Yes, you can, Young Sun's eyes locked in hers, because the alternative is being disappeared. Do you understand? Naomi understood perfectly. Min Jae wasn't here to reconcile. He was here to clean up. Hours bled together in that office. Naomi watched the city lights flicker on as dusk swallowed downtown LA. Young Sun made calls in Korean, clipped, efficient, the kind of conversations that ended with yes or silence. Ji-woon finished his homework, then pulled out a sketchbook. Around midnight, the boy's pencil stopped moving. His head dipped forward, chin touching chest. Young Sun crossed the room without sound. He lifted Ji-woon like the boy weighed nothing, practiced, gentle, the way you carry something precious and breakable, disappeared into a back room. When he returned, Naomi was still there, standing at the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at nothing and everything. You didn't have to stay, Young Sun said quietly. Naomi didn't turn around. I didn't know where else to go. The honesty surprised her. She'd spent 3 years building walls, and this man she barely knew kept walking through them like they were made of paper. Young Sun poured 2 glasses of whiskey, neat, slid one across the desk toward the empty chair. Naomi took it, sat. The leather was still warm from where Ji-woon had been sleeping. He's a good kid, she said. He's all I have left. The words came out flat, matter of fact, but Naomi heard the weight underneath. She waited, gave him space to fill or leave empty. Young Sun stared into his glass. Her name was Min Seo, my wife. He took a drink. Car bombing 5 years ago. Meant for me. Naomi's chest tightened. Ji-woon was 7. He was in the car, back seat. Young Sun's jaw worked. He watched her die and couldn't do anything. Neither could I. The silence stretched. Naomi didn't offer empty comfort. She understood that some losses don't want sympathy. They just want acknowledgement. I should have protected them, Young Sun continued, voice still eerily controlled. I thought I was careful, kept business separate from family. I was wrong. That's why he moved like a ghost, why he kept everyone at arm's length, why Ji-woon lived in a fortress pretending to be a warehouse. That's why you help people, Naomi asked. Penance? Young Sun looked at her then, really looked. I don't want my son growing up thinking the world is only cruel. Something cracked open in Naomi's chest. This wasn't obligation, wasn't strategy. Ji-woon had asked his father to help her, and Young Sun said yes because he was trying to teach his son that sometimes you stand between strangers in their destruction, that sometimes you push back against the cruelty. He reminds you, Naomi said softly, that there's still something worth protecting. Young Sun's eyes darkened. Yes. And maybe I do too, Naomi thought, but didn't say. Young Sun stood abruptly, the moment closing. You're staying in one of my secured apartments, already arranged. I'm not a prisoner. No, his voice went hard. You're someone they want to silence. There's a difference. Naomi wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself, but Min Jae's text message still burned in her mind. I've missed you. How long? She asked. Until it's safe. When will that be? Young Sun didn't answer. They both knew the truth. Safety was a luxury neither of them could afford. The apartment was in Silver Lake, top floor, bulletproof windows, keypad entry. Beautiful and impersonal, Scandinavian furniture, abstract art that meant nothing, a kitchen too clean to have ever been used. Naomi hated that it felt like relief. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, noticed a folder on the kitchen counter, manila, unmarked. She opened it with shaking hands. Business records, shell companies with names like Pacific Consulting Group and Westbridge Holdings, wire transfers, millions moving through accounts in the Caymans, Singapore, Delaware. All connected to Min Jae, but underneath those documents, photographs. Naomi outside her loft, Naomi at a coffee shop, Naomi walking to her car, a month's worth of surveillance. Someone had been watching her for weeks. Her hands trembled so badly she nearly dropped the folder. She grabbed the burner phone, dialed the only number saved. Young Sun answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Not a question, a demand. How long have you known someone was following me? Silence. Then, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Naomi's throat constricted. Why didn't you? Another pause, longer this time. When Young Sun spoke, his voice was raw, honest in a way that felt like a wound. Because I wasn't sure yet if I was going to do something about it. The line went quiet. Naomi didn't know if she should be grateful or terrified that he'd chosen her. Morning sun cut through the Silver Lake apartment's floor-to-ceiling windows. Naomi was making coffee when the buzzer rang. She checked the camera feed. Jiwon stood in the hallway holding a paper bag, backpack slung over one shoulder. Young Sun lingered behind him, unreadable as always. Naomi buzzed them up. I brought breakfast, Jiwon announced, stepping inside like he'd been invited 100 times before. And I need help with my social studies project. It's about cultural identity. He set the bag on the counter, bagels, cream cheese, fruit, looked at her expectantly. Young Sun stayed in the doorway, hands in his pockets, waiting. Naomi smiled beside herself. Come in, both of you. 2 weeks became a rhythm neither of them named. Jiwon showed up after school, Tuesdays and Thursdays at first, then most days, sometimes with homework, sometimes just to talk. Young Sun accompanied him every time, initially hovering near the door like a bodyguard, then gradually sitting at the kitchen counter, then eventually joining conversations. Naomi learned things in the silences between words. That Jiwon was brilliant, memorized Korean poetry for fun, solved calculus problems his teacher hadn't assigned yet, but he was lonely in the way only smart kids surrounded by adults can be. That Young Sun read poetry late at night when he couldn't sleep, classical Korean stuff, Sejong verses about loss and seasons and the impermanence of power. That they both carried grief like a second skeleton, invisible to most people, but always there, shaping how they moved through the world. Jiwon asked questions about everything: why Naomi's last name was Williams, where her family came from, what Nigeria looked like. She showed him photos on her laptop, her grandmother's village, red dirt roads, markets exploding with color. Taught him to cook jollof rice the way her mother had taught her, explaining how the tomatoes had to cook down until the oil separated, how the rice absorbed flavor in layers. It's like chemistry, Jiwon said, stirring the pot with intense concentration. Exactly like chemistry. Young Sun sat at the counter, silent but present, watching them with an expression Naomi couldn't decode. She talked about belonging to multiple worlds, about code switching, about the exhaustion of translating yourself for people who don't really want to understand. Jiwon listened like she was handing him a map to territory he'd been trying to navigate alone. I'm Korean, he said one afternoon, but I've never been to Korea. I'm American, but people always ask where I'm really from. He frowned. It's like I'm supposed to pick one. You don't have to, Naomi said firmly. You get to be all of it. Young Sun's eyes met hers across the room. Something passed between them. Recognition? Gratitude? One evening, Jiwon fell asleep on Naomi's couch mid-sentence, geometry textbook open on his chest. She pulled a blanket over him, careful not to wake him. When she straightened, Young Sun was watching from the armchair. He talks about you, Young Sun said quietly, more than he's talked about anything in years. Naomi's throat tightened. He's a good kid. He likes you because you don't pretend, Young Sun's gaze didn't waver. Neither do I. The air between them shifted. Electric. Dangerous. Naomi looked away first. The letter arrived on a Wednesday. Formal, legal, threatening. One of her former clients, a marketing firm she'd consulted for last year, was suing her for breach of contract, $10,000 in damages. The firm's parent company traced back to a Seoul conglomerate. Kang family fingerprints all over it. Naomi's hands shook as she read it. This wasn't about money. It was about destroying her credibility, draining her resources, forcing her into visibility. She showed Young Sun that evening when Jiwon and Young Sun arrived. He read it once, pulled out his phone, made a call in Korean, 3 sentences, clipped and final. 48 hours later, the lawsuit vanished, withdrawn without explanation. Naomi didn't ask how. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. The encrypted message arrives on a Wednesday. Grace Chen, her ex-colleague from Seoul, one of the few people who'd stayed in touch after the divorce. Naomi, I don't know who you're with now, but be careful. Min Jae is telling people you stole proprietary information when you left. He's building a case to have you extradited. He's insane. Naomi's blood turned to ice. She forwarded the message to Young-sun immediately. He arrived 20 minutes later, alone. Ji-won must have been with his security detail. Young-sun read the message. His expression went cold, dangerous in a way that made Naomi's survival instincts scream. He's escalating, Young-sun said, voice flat, because he knows you're protected, Mao. He's trying to force my hand. What does that mean? Young-sun stood, jaw tight, hands clenched. It means I need to make a choice about how far I'm willing to go. The unspoken question hung between them. How much are you worth to me? Naomi didn't ask it out loud. She was terrified of the answer. Dawn came cold and gray over Silver Lake. Naomi stood on the apartment balcony, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the city waking up below. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Min Jae's face, heard Grace's warning, felt the walls closing in. The sliding door whispered open behind her. Ji-woon stepped out in his school uniform, backpack already on. He didn't say anything, just sat down on the balcony floor, back against the railing, and waited. The way his father did. Naomi's throat burned. You're gonna be late for school. Dad already called me out sick. Ji-woon pulled his knees up. He said you needed someone today. Something inside Naomi fractured. She slid down beside him, shoulder to shoulder against the cold metal railing. The words came before she could stop them. His mother called me that black woman at a family dinner once. Not to my face, to her friend, like I wasn't sitting 10 feet away. Min Jae heard her. Everyone heard her. He just kept eating. Ji-woon stayed quiet, listening the way adults rarely do, without interruption, without solutions. They accused me of stealing jewelry, searched my things like I was a criminal, and Min Jae suggested it, my own husband. I kept thinking if I was good enough, quiet enough, small enough, they'd accept me. But it was never about me. It was about what I represented, what they thought I was trying to take from them. The silence stretched. Then Ji-woon spoke, voice steady beyond his years. My mom used to say that some people are so scared of their own smallness, they try to make everyone else smaller. He looked at Naomi with those two old eyes. She said the bravest thing is to stay big anyway. Naomi's breath shuddered. She looked at this 12-year-old boy and saw someone who understood. Someone who'd had to grow up too fast, learn too young that the world breaks people and keeps spinning. They were both survivors of violence they didn't ask for. Your mom sounds like she was amazing, Naomi whispered. She was. Naomi's voice didn't waver. You remind me of her sometimes, the way you don't make yourself smaller even when people want you to. Naomi's chest ached. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ji-woon asked the question no one else would. Do you like Dad? Naomi froze. I respect him. That's not what I asked. She couldn't look at him. Ji-woon, it's okay if you do. His voice was matter-of-fact. I think he likes you too. He's just scared. Naomi didn't answer. Couldn't, because admitting it out loud made it real, and real things could be taken away. That evening, Young-soon arrived alone. His face was drawn, exhausted. Ji-woon told me what you talked about. All of it, he said without preamble. Naomi's spine went rigid. He shouldn't have. You don't have to carry that alone anymore. Young-soon's voice was strained, raw. You understand that, right? Naomi's defenses slammed up like steel doors. I'm not your responsibility. No, Young-soon agreed, stepping closer, but maybe you're something else. The air between them crackled, charged, dangerous. Neither of them moved. Young-soon's phone shattered the moment, sharp, insistent ringing. He answered in Korean, listened, and his entire body went rigid. I have to go. He was already moving toward the door. Federal raid, one of my legitimate businesses. This is. He stopped, turned back. Don't leave this apartment. I mean it, Naomi. How long? However long it takes. His eyes locked on hers. Promise me. I promise. He left. The apartment felt emptier without him. Naomi poured whiskey she didn't drink, stared at her phone, tried not to think about Yang Soon saying, "Maybe you're something else," in that voice that sounded like confession. Her phone buzzed. Personal number. Unknown caller. Text message. I know where you're hiding. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Little Tokyo. Come alone or I'll make sure your new friends regret protecting you. MJ. Naomi's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Min-jae knew where she was, knew about Yang Soon, and he was willing to burn it all down. She looked at the door Yang Soon had just walked through. Don't leave this apartment. But if she didn't go, Min-jae would come for them, for Ji-woon, for the people trying to protect her. Naomi grabbed her keys. Some battles you have to fight alone. Naomi stared at Min-jae's text for 10 minutes. Her keys sat on the counter. The door waited. She put the keys back in her purse. Not because she was afraid, because going to him meant he still controlled her, and she'd spent 3 years fighting to get that control back. She deleted the message, poured the whiskey down the sink, waited. Yang Sun returned after midnight, moving like gravity had doubled its pull. His shirt was wrinkled, tie gone, exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes. He poured whiskey, neat, didn't drink it, just held the glass like it might contain answers. Naomi sat across from him at the kitchen counter. Tell me what you're thinking. Yang Sun's laugh was bitter. That I'm making mistakes I can't afford. The raid? Coordinated, professional. They knew exactly which business to hit, which files to target. He set the glass down too hard. The Kang family has connections I underestimated, and protecting you is destabilizing everything I've spent 15 years building. The words landed like stones. Naomi's chest tightened. Your lies? Are questioning my judgment, wondering why I'm risking neutrality for someone with no strategic value. His voice was flat, clinical. My enemies see weakness, blood in the water. Naomi stood. She should leave, give him an out, let him go back to his carefully controlled world where emotions didn't compromise operations. If I were smart, Young Sun continued, eyes on the whiskey he wouldn't drink, I'd put you on the plane tonight, disappear you. Australia maybe, New Zealand, somewhere Min-jae's network can't reach. Why don't you? The question hung in the air between them. Young Sun looked up, really looked at her, and his mask, that lethal, controlled mask, cracked. Because I'm not as controlled as I pretend to be. The confession hit like a wave. Naomi's breath caught. She should step back, maintain distance, protect them both from the inevitable disaster of wanting something you can't keep. Instead, she moved closer. I spent 2 years married to a man who never saw me. You see me. It terrifies me. Young Sun stood, closing the space between them until she could feel the heat radiating off his skin. Good, he said, voice rough. I'm terrified too. The kiss was inevitable, desperate. Years of loneliness compressed into a single moment. His hands in her hair, her fingers gripping his shirt, both of them drowning in something that felt dangerously close to salvation. It wasn't gentle. It was survival disguised as intimacy. 2 people who'd learned not to need anyone, needing each other anyway. They pulled apart, breathing hard. Young Sun's forehead rested against hers. Neither spoke. Words would have ruined it. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice, insistent. Young Sun pulled it out, jaw already tight. Opened the message. Naomi watched his expression turn to stone. He handed her the phone without a word. A photograph, surveillance quality, taken from outside the apartment window, them, seconds ago, in each other's arms. The caption made Naomi's blood freeze. The black whore found a new protector. How long before he throws you out too? MJ. Naomi couldn't breathe. Min-jae was watching, right now, had been watching. Young Sun's expression went lethal. He pulled up a contact, made a call, spoke in rapid Korean, clipped, final, the kind of orders that don't get questioned. When he hung up, his voice was ice. Min-jae just made a mistake. What mistake? He involved my son by threatening you under my roof. Surveillance on this apartment means surveillance on Ji-woon. Young Sun's eyes were black, merciless. I was willing to stay neutral, let you handle your past your way. Not anymore. Naomi's hands shook. What are you going to do? Young Sun moved to the window, looked out at the city like he was calculating trajectories. I'm going to remind him that some lines should never be crossed, and I'm going to accept an invitation I've been avoiding. What invitation? He turned back, and Naomi saw the dawn awake now. No more restraint, no more caution. The Atlanta Summit. Every major Korean organization in North America will be there. Neutral ground, witnesses. His eyes locked on hers. The Kang family. Naomi's stomach dropped. Young Sun. And you're coming with me. That's insane. Walking into a room full of... The only way to end this, Young Sun interrupted, is to take away his power publicly, make him untouchable for the wrong reasons. He stepped closer. You trust me? Naomi should say no, should run. Yes. Then pack. We leave in 3 days. 3 days moved like a countdown to detonation. Young Sun's people worked in shifts. Lawyers, accountants, tech specialists who made digital forensics look like art. They compiled everything, financial records showing Min-jae's shell companies, witness statements from employees he'd thrown under buses, recordings of conversations he thought were private, evidence that could bury him. Naomi was fitted for formal attire by a woman who didn't speak, just measured and pinned with ruthless efficiency. The dress that emerged was midnight blue, elegant, expensive, armor disguised as fashion. A man named Dae-jung taught her the politics. Never break eye contact first. Never apologize. Never explain. He spoke like he was teaching combat. These people respect strength, show weakness, and they'll tear you apart for sport. On the third morning, Ji-woon's bags sat by the warehouse door. The boy hugged Naomi tighter than seemed possible for someone so small, whispered against her shoulder, "Finish it." Naomi held him back just as hard. "I will." Young Sun's most trusted associate, a woman named Se-yun with kind eyes and a concealed carry permit, took Ji-woon's hand. They left without looking back. The silence after felt like a void. The private jet cut through clouds at 40,000 feet. Naomi sat across from Young Sun, Atlanta 3 hours away. "Explain it to me again," she said. "The summit." Young Sun looked up from the documents he'd been reviewing. Neutral ground, held annually. Disputes get mediated, alliances formed, power redistributed. Every major Korean organization in North America attends, plus affiliates, Yakuza connections, triad representatives, independents. Sounds civilized. It's theater. Young Sun's smile was sharp. Everyone performs civility while planning each other's destruction. But there are rules. No violence on neutral ground. No public accusations without proof. Everything's about reputation. Naomi's stomach twisted. What happens if this goes wrong? Young Sun didn't sugarcoat it, never did. Then we both become targets. Min-jae will spin this as a personal vendetta, claim I'm using you to undermine the Kang family's business interests. His allies will believe him, and we'll be fighting a war on multiple fronts. And if it goes right? Min-jae loses everything: reputation, allies, protection. He becomes untouchable for the wrong reasons. Naomi processed this. You're risking your entire organization for me. Yes. Why? Young Sun's eyes met hers, and there was no mask anymore, just raw truth. Because some things are worth the risk. Naomi felt something shift in her chest. She wasn't just fighting for her freedom anymore. She was fighting for a future. with Yongsun, with Ji-woon, with the strange, broken family they'd accidentally built in the wreckage of their separate disasters. "I won't let you down," she said quietly. "I know." Atlanta came humid and heavy, the kind of heat that made designer suits stick to skin. The hotel was everything Yongsun promised: opulent, discreet, the kind of place where powerful people conducted business they'd deny in daylight. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff who knew not to remember faces. The lobby was theater already: Korean, Japanese, Chinese men in suits that cost more than cars, women dripping diamonds and designer labels, everyone performing wealth and power. Naomi felt every eye land on her the moment they walked in, the black woman on the arm of the LA Don. Youngsun's hand stayed on her lower back, possessive, protective. His message was clear: she's mine, touch her and answer to me. They made it halfway across the lobby before the ambush. "Naomi!" That voice, Madame Kang San-hwa, dripping venom disguised as surprise. She stood near the concierge desk with Hae-won, both of them frozen mid-conversation. Sanhwa's face contorted, rage flashing before forced composure smoothed it over. "How unexpected!" Hae-won didn't bother with composure. Her sneer was immediate, ugly. "Did you dig your claws into another one already? You work fast." The lobby went quiet. Conversations died mid-sentence. Everyone turned to watch. Yongsun's voice cut through like a blade. "Careful, you're speaking to my guest." Sanhwa's eyes narrowed. "Your guest?" She said it like the word tasted rotten. "Yes," Yongsun didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "And I don't tolerate disrespect." Movement at the grand staircase drew every eye. Min-jae descended slowly, flanked by two men, one of them Tanaka Kenji, unmistakable. Expensive suit, dead eyes, the kind of man who'd kill you and order dessert. Min-jae's smile was poisonous, delighted. He looked at Naomi and Yongsun like they'd just delivered Christmas early. "Well, well," his voice carried across the silent lobby. "Shall we all have dinner? I insist." It wasn't an invitation, it was a declaration of war. The private ballroom dripped wealth: crystal chandeliers, gold leaf accents, tables set with china that cost more than most people's cars. 50 of the most dangerous people in North America sat in designer suits, cutting Wagyu beef with surgical precision, pretending civilization was more than a performance. Naomi sat beside Yongsun at a table directly across from Min-jae and his family. The seating wasn't accidental, it was deliberate, a power play designed to make her uncomfortable. She straightened her spine, refused to shrink. Min-jae raised his wineglass, smiled like they were old friends. "Naomi, you look well. I'm glad you've moved on." His tone suggested the exact opposite, suggested she was a stain he'd scrubbed off and was disappointed to find still visible. Madame Kang San-hwa dabbed her mouth with a napkin, eyes cold. "Though I must say, your taste in companions remains questionable." Hae-won smirked into her wine. Yongsun didn't react. He sat unnervingly still, a predator conserving energy, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Naomi had spent 3 years finding her voice again, 3 years learning that silence wasn't safety. "Funny," she said clearly, meeting Sun-hwa's eyes across the table. "I was just thinking the same about yours." The table went rigid. Silverware paused midair. Conversations at neighboring tables faltered. Min-jae's smile tightened at the edges. "Still so sharp. I forgot how much you enjoyed making scenes." "I learned from the best." Naomi took a sip of water, calm, controlled. "Your mother taught me everything about public humiliation." Sun-hwa's knuckles went white around her fork. The dinner continued, course after course, each one a battlefield disguised as hospitality. Every barbed comment from the Kang family, Naomi deflected or countered. She wasn't the woman who stayed silent anymore, wasn't the woman who made herself small to avoid conflict. Yongsun watched her with something that looked dangerously close to pride. Min-jae, frustrated by her composure, abandoned subtlety. "Tell me, Naomi, did you tell your new friend about the theft?" He said it loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Or do you save your criminal tendencies for after the honeymoon?" The room stilled. This was the moment he'd been building toward, the public accusation, the character assassination. Yongsun set down his fork with deliberate precision. The sound echoed. Interesting choice of topic. Theft. He raised one hand. An associate materialized from the periphery, carrying a stack of folders. The man moved around the table, distributing them to the summit mediators, the heads of families, everyone whose opinion mattered. Min-jae's confident expression wavered. "Inside," Yongsun continued, "you'll find documentation of embezzlement, $30 million to be exact, siphoned from Kang family accounts over 3 years and laundered through shell companies in the Cayman Islands." Min-jae's face drained of color. People opened the folders. Naomi watched recognition dawn on face after face, accountants who knew what they were looking at, lawyers who understood the implications. The thief, Yongsun said, each word sharp as a scalpel, was very careful, exceptionally thorough, except he made one mistake. He slid a photograph across the table, a receipt for a jade bracelet, purchased from a Hong Kong jeweler, paid for through one of Min-jae's shell accounts. He used the same accounts to purchase jewelry, including a jade bracelet, that he then claimed was stolen by his wife to justify divorcing her without settlement. The murmurs exploded into open conversation. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. Madame Kang Sun-hwa stood abruptly, chair scraping against marble. "This is slander, fabrication designed to—" Yongsun slid one more document across the table. Signed confession. Min-jae's former accountant, currently in protective custody, very willing to testify. He let that sink in before continuing. He was very thorough. Names, dates, amounts, wire transfers. He also mentioned something interesting. Yongsun's eyes locked on Min-jae. That Naomi was never told about the family's criminal operations. She was kept intentionally ignorant to maintain her usefulness as an unwitting front for American expansion. The silence was deafening. Naomi looked at Min-jae, really looked at him, saw the man she'd married disintegrate before her eyes. His hands trembled, sweat beaded on his forehead. He stared at her with pure, undiluted hatred. She met his eyes, unflinching, unafraid. "You destroyed me for nothing," she said quietly, but every person in that ballroom heard her. "Accused me of theft to cover your own crimes, used me, discarded me, tried to erase me." She stood, the midnight blue dress catching the chandelier light. "And now everyone knows exactly what you are." Min-jae opened his mouth, closed it. Nothing he said would matter now. The damage was done. Irreversible. Final. The summit mediators stood in unison, 3 men in identical gray suits who'd watched the entire spectacle with expressionless faces. The eldest spoke in accented English. "We require private deliberation. Mr. Kang, you'll accompany us." Min-jae stood on shaking legs. 2 security personnel materialized at his sides, not touching him, but the implication clear. He was being escorted like a suspect, not a peer. Madame Kang Sun-hwa remained frozen at the table, her carefully constructed composure shattered. Hae-won stared at her plate, face flushed with humiliation. The ballroom erupted into conversation the moment Min-jae disappeared through the gilded doors. Naomi couldn't breathe in there anymore. She walked toward the terrace doors, Young-sun following without a word. Atlanta's skyline glittered below them, lights stretching to the horizon, oblivious to the war that had just concluded above. Naomi gripped the railing, finally exhaling. "It's over." "Not yet." Young-sun's voice carried a warning. "Wounded animals are the most dangerous." But for one moment they let themselves breathe. The night air was humid, heavy, alive with the sound of the city below. Naomi leaned against the railing. Young Sun stood beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his presence like heat. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For letting me fight my own battle, for not rescuing me," she turned to look at him, "for standing beside me instead." Young Sun's hand covered hers on the railing, his tattooed knuckles stark against her skin. "You never needed rescuing. You needed someone to watch your back." Naomi felt something settle in her chest. This was partnership, not subordination, not protection, but accompaniment. Two people, equally powerful, choosing each other despite the cost. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we wait for the verdict, then we go home." Home. The word sounded different when he said it, like it meant something bigger than a place. The terrace doors opened. Dae-jung appeared, expression carefully neutral. They're back. Inside, the mediators had returned to the head table. The ballroom fell silent. The eldest spoke without a preamble. "After reviewing the evidence presented, this council finds sufficient cause for concern regarding Mr. Kang Min-jae's financial conduct. He is hereby stripped of his operational position within Kang Family Enterprises, pending criminal investigation." Madam Kang's face went gray. "Furthermore," the mediator continued, "the Kang family's standing within this organization will be reviewed at next year's summit. Until then, all partnerships are considered provisional and subject to individual discretion." Polite words, brutal meaning. The Kang family had just been blacklisted. Across the room, Tanaka Kenji stood. His voice carried like a pronouncement. "The Tanaka Gumi dissolves all business arrangements with the Kang family effective immediately." Other heads of organizations murmured agreement, alliances crumbling in real time. But Min-jae wasn't in the room to witness his destruction. Naomi scanned the ballroom. Where is he? Young Sun's phone vibrated, once, twice, then it exploded, alerts stacking on top of alerts, the screen lighting up like an emergency. He pulled it out, read the first message. His entire body went rigid. Naomi knew that stillness. That was terror wearing a mask of control. "What is it?" Young Sun's voice came out flat, dead. "Ji-woon's safe house, breached." The world tilted. "What?" He was already moving, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. Naomi followed him into the lobby, heart hammering. Young Sun pulled up security footage on his phone, grainy, timestamp from 17 minutes ago, a car outside the safe house, two men forcing a struggling boy into the back seat. Ji-woon. Naomi's blood turned to ice. Young Sun's phone buzzed again, text message, unknown number. He opened it. Naomi read over his shoulder. "You took everything from me. Now I take what you love. The old warehouse district. Come alone. Bring the bitch." Young Sun's expression went beyond dangerous, beyond lethal. This was a father's terror wrapped in a killer's control, and the combination was apocalyptic. His voice, when he spoke, was deadly calm. "Call everyone, now." Dae-jung was already on his phone. Young Sun looked at Naomi. "This isn't your fight anymore." "The hell it isn't," Naomi's voice was steel. "He took Ji-woon because of me. I'm finishing this." "Naomi." To you he turned and said, "You told me you stand beside people, not in front of them, so stand beside me now." For 1 second, Young Sun looked like he might argue. Then he nodded once. "Get in the car." They moved. The SUV cut through Atlanta's industrial district like a blade. No lights, no hesitation. 3 more vehicles followed, shadows carrying shadows. Young Sun's men moved with lethal precision, checking weapons, earpieces crackling with coordinates. Naomi sat beside Young Sun in the hands steady despite the adrenaline screaming through her veins. He'd tried one more time to make her stay at the hotel. She'd looked him dead in the eye. He took Ji-won because of me. I'm finishing this. Young Sun hadn't argued again. The warehouse district rose around them, abandoned textile factories, rusted machinery, buildings that used to make things before the economy forgot they existed. Perfect place for violence that needed privacy. They stopped 3 blocks out. Silent exit. Hand signals. Yang Sun's men fanned out, securing perimeter. The textile factory loomed ahead. Broken windows, graffiti-tagged walls, a structure slowly being reclaimed by kudzu and time. Yang Sun's hand found Naomi's in the darkness, squeezed once, then let go. They moved. Inside, the factory was a skeleton, exposed beams, concrete floors cracked and stained, moonlight cutting through holes in the roof. Min-jae stood in the center like a man performing his own execution. Hair disheveled, suit rumpled, eyes wild with the particular madness of someone who's lost everything and decided to take everyone down with him. Ji-won sat tied to a metal chair 10 feet behind Min-jae. The boy's eyes were furious, not afraid. Naomi's heart lurched. "This is poetic, isn't it?" Min-jae's voice echoed in the empty space. He paced like a caged animal. "You humiliate me in front of everyone who matters, destroy my reputation, my family, my future, so I take your son. Fair trade." Yang Sun's gun was already drawn, steady, aimed center mass. "Let him go. Your problem is with me." "No," Min-jae's shout cracked with hysteria. His own weapon appeared, pointed directly at Ji-won. His head moved toward Naomi. Stalemate. If Yang Sun fired, Min-jae's finger could still pull the trigger. "She was supposed to be grateful," Min-jae snarled. "Obedient. I gave her everything. A name, status, access to a world she'd never have touched otherwise. And instead, she destroyed my life." Naomi stepped forward, hands raised, moving into the line of fire. "You destroyed your own life, Min-jae. I was just convenient to blame." "You were nothing," spit flew from his mouth. "A nobody from nowhere, and I made you somebody." "No," Naomi's voice was steady, certain. "You tried to make me nothing. You tried to erase me, control me, use me. There's a difference." Min-jae's gun hand shook violently. "You think he's different?" He gestured wildly at Yang Sun. "You think this criminal won't throw you away the second you become inconvenient? They all do. People like us, we're not capable of. I would burn my empire to ash before I let anyone hurt her or my son." Yang Sun's voice cut through Min-jae's spiral. "Absolute. Final. No room for doubt. Try me." The declaration echoed in the cavernous space. Even Ji-won's eyes went wide. Min-jae's face contorted. "You're lying. You're all—" Ji-won moved. Hands still bound behind the chair, the boy threw his weight backward. The chair tipped, crashed to the concrete. Min-jae's attention snapped toward the sound. Yang Sun fired. The gun flew from Min-jae's hand, skittering across the floor. Men in black flooded through every entrance, surrounding them in seconds. But Min-jae wasn't done. Desperation made him feral. He lunged toward Naomi, a knife materializing from his jacket. Naomi didn't freeze. 3 years of self-defense classes, 3 years of rebuilding herself, 3 years of refusing to be a victim again, it all crystallized into muscle memory. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, used his momentum against him, torquing her body and slamming him face first into the concrete. The knife clattered away. Naomi stood over him, breathing hard, one knee pressed into his spine. "I'm not your victim anymore." Min-jae tried to struggle. She pressed harder. "Stay down." Police sirens wailed outside, close, getting closer. Yang Sun was already cutting Ji-won free. The boy stumbled to his feet, ran first to his father, then to Naomi, wrapping his arms around both of them. "You okay?" Naomi cupped his face, checking for injuries. "I'm fine, are you?" She almost laughed, almost cried. "Yeah, I'm fine." Officers poured in, Atlanta PD, flashlights cutting through darkness. Yang Sun had called them before arriving, ensuring Min-jae's kidnapping had legal consequences he couldn't buy his way out of. Min-jae was dragged to his feet, screaming threats that echoed and died in the empty factory. "This isn't over. You think you've won? I'll destroy you. Both of you. I'll—" His voice faded as they hauled him away. Ji-won looked up at Young-sun, exhausted. "Can we go home now?" Young-sun's eyes found Naomi's, held them. "Where's home?" The question hung between them, not about a place, about a choice. "Do you stay?" Naomi reached for his hand. "Wherever you two are." 6 months later, the gallery in LA's Arts District hummed with life. Naomi stood near the entrance, watching people flow through the space she'd built from nothing. Well, not nothing, from wreckage, from the ashes of a life someone else tried to burn down. The walls displayed art from Korean and African diaspora artists, paintings that spoke to belonging and displacement, sculptures that captured the weight of living between worlds, photography that made invisible stories visible. Her cultural consulting business had evolved into something bigger, a nonprofit supporting immigrant and intercultural families. Resources, mentorship, community, the things she'd needed and never had. The room was full. Clients who'd become friends, artists she championed, people who understood what it meant to rebuild yourself when the world said you were disposable. Ji-woon sat front row, beside his father. The boy had grown in 6 months, taller, still serious, but smiling more. He wore a button-up shirt he'd picked himself, sketchbook on his lap. Young-sun caught Naomi's eye, nodded once. "You've got this." She stepped to the microphone. "Thank you for being here," Naomi began, voice steady. "I'm going to tell you a story, the real one, not the version I used to tell to make people comfortable." She talked about soul, about being erased while still breathing, about shame weaponized as control, about surviving a marriage designed to destroy her. "I spent years thinking I needed to be smaller to be safe, quieter, less visible, less me. I was wrong." Her eyes found Young-sun's. "Safety isn't in silence, it's in standing beside people who refuse to let you fall. It's in being seen, really seen, and not apologizing for taking up space." The applause started before she finished. She let it wash over her, this moment she'd earned. After the formal program, Ji-woon approached with something behind his back. Shy, proud. "I made you something." He handed her a drawing, careful pencil work, shaded and detailed. A family portrait. Him in the middle, Young-sun on one side, Naomi on the other. Their hands connected, faces smiling. At the bottom, in Ji-woon's precise handwriting, "My family." Naomi's eyes burned. She didn't hide the tears, just pulled Ji-woon into a hug that said everything words couldn't. "It's perfect," she whispered. "You're perfect." "Can we frame it for the new house?" "Absolutely." Later, Naomi escaped to the gallery's rooftop. The city sprawled below, lights stretching to infinity. She heard footsteps behind her, recognized them before turning. Young-sun leaned against the railing beside her. Min-jae was formally charged today, federal court, embezzlement, money laundering, kidnapping, 30 years minimum. Naomi nodded slowly. "How do you feel?" "Relieved. For you. For us." "And your business?" Young-sun's mouth quirked. "Stable, boring even. Turns out going legitimate is exhausting, so much paperwork." Naomi laughed, truly laughed, the sound free and unguarded. "Poor baby." "You know, tragic." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box, not a ring box, something else. Inside, a house key, silver, new, catching the rooftop lights. "It's to the house," Young-sun said. "The one Ji-woon and I picked out in Pasadena. 4 bedrooms, office space for your work, studio for Ji-woon's art, garden." He paused. "Room for a family." Naomi's breath caught. "I'm not asking you to marry me," Young-sun continued carefully. "Not yet. I'm asking if you want to build something, together. No erasure, no compromises, no making yourself smaller. Just us." Naomi took the key, felt its weight in her palm, solid, real, hers. Then she took his hand. "Yes." Below them, visible through the gallery's glass ceiling, Ji-woon was showing his drawing to a group of people, pointing excitedly, explaining his artistic choices with the seriousness of a curator. The city lights shimmered. For the first time in years, Naomi didn't see the past lurking in shadows, waiting to reclaim her. She saw the future, clear, bright, hers. "Do you think we'll be okay?" she asked quietly. Youngsun pulled her close, his tattooed hand cradling her face with a gentleness that still surprised her. "We already survived the worst. Everything else is just living." And finally, Naomi believed him. The woman who'd been told she was nothing stood on a rooftop in the city she'd rebuilt herself in, holding the hand of a man who saw her, beside a boy who chose her. She wasn't invisible anymore. She never had been. She just needed to remember. The end. Thank you for joining K Stories by Emma for this incredible journey. If you loved this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Until next time, believe in love, fight for what matters, and never give up on redemption. This is Emma, signing off.